Carrie, we might not. I mean, if no one else comes, other. I think it's a couple more seats here.
I think we could stream it from there.
Here's Bill Schutte.
How would you refer it? He should, if he's he's supposed to be Mr. Willis. Same rule. Okay. Madam Secretary. No,
You like those people? Right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, indeed.
Thank you. I'm just seeing Bill Schutte.
Yeah, I actually bio.
Maybe so. Let me get the 6. We're pretty close. We're pretty close to getting underway. I'm going to grab those 6. Thanks, Mike.
Now I'm nervous. Our son got hung up by Lance. Yeah. So anyway, where's the first lady? Is she here today?
She is, yeah.
How you doing?
My wife chose
I'm with you. I'm down.
They don't like
That's very quick. Chris, how are you, bud? I'm great. And your check didn't bounce? I don't want it. I don't want it.
Good to go, guys? Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. One of the things that we've been trying to state in a very public way here at Northwood is we're Midlands University, and the fact that we have members from our community here, I welcome all of you onto campus, back onto campus. It's this is a gem of an institution, and we want people to feel welcome here. So really, really pleased that members of our community, including some of Andrew's former workmates and friends from town, are here, and it's like homecoming for him being back in Midland. To my faculty and staff colleagues, I want to thank you for being here as well. This is a busy time of year, and but this is obviously an important and timely topic. But let me just cast the light on the most important people in the room, and that's our students. And the best things that we can give you is to move you away from a textbook and let you look behind the curtain to kind of hear what is it really, really like to lead an institution. And sometimes, like riding a bike, you fall down, you scrape your knees, you got to get back up on your bike and keep going. That's leadership. And as many of you have heard me say very often, I'll say, who knows how to ride a bike? And all the students put up their hand. And I ask, did you learn to ride a bike by reading a book? And of course you don't. You have to learn to get on it. And that's what we think leadership is all about. And the fact that we have a former CEO of one of not Midlands, not Michigan's, not America's, but one of the world's great companies here to share his insights with you is just a real gift to all of us. We have now the next installment of Leadership Insights, what we call A View from the Helm. And we've actually adopted that name from a book from the former president of University of Michigan, James Duderstadt, who wrote a great book on higher education leadership, and we have adapted it here. And it was almost 2 years ago that we had a great leader by the name of Terry Moore, and another great leader who Andrew sends his very best from Naples, Florida, Bill Stavropoulos. He wishes that he could be here, but welcomes you back to Midland and hopes that you're doing great. So with that, because this is an academic exercise from a learning point of view, we start these out by giving a perspective from the faculty. And so Dr. Thomas is here, a great professor that has this unique balance of what we find extremely helpful in a classroom is not only an academic credential and what do the theories say, but actually has that scar tissue of what what it's like to be in an industry. So I'm going to ask Todd to come forward and do some context setting, and then my friend and colleague Dr. Stayhauer is going to do the formal introduction to our guest today. So welcome everyone to Northwood University, and Andrew, welcome back to Midland. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So I have about 30 years of experience in organizational and executive development. My career is almost half right here at Northwood. But prior to that, I worked with the C-suite almost exclusively for Rockwell Avionics, Mercedes, Daimler Chrysler. And then when Daimler and Chrysler demerged, I worked as a consultant for Daimler AG. And so I've always been a little inured by executive titles. It's not that I don't respect executive titles, but the important thing when you work with executives that you figure out pretty soon is there is no magic. And they aren't necessarily the most brilliant people in the room, but they do have one important element that successful leaders always leverage, and that is that they sit in a different part of the organization. And as a result, there are different expectations, there are different experiences, and there are different perspectives. One of the things that I learned pretty quickly was that when leaders set up in an organization, sometimes they spend their time looking down. And this time that they spend looking down is fighting off marauders and giving commands. And there's an interesting thing, by the way, if you think about this mountain kind of metaphor, is if you sit there and look down, you actually can't see very well. So successful leaders learn that as they go up in an organization, they actually can see further and they can see sooner. And by that, I mean truly successful executives, like our guest, have built a career off looking out into the future to see what the challenges are going to be, and then communicating that and building teams that can actually make it happen. So in a time where everything seems volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, if you've seen the book or you've heard the acronym of VUCA, what we really need is leaders that understand their role in helping us understand what the priorities are and what we need to focus on. Mr. Liveris is a model of leaders that know how to do this. Now, I'm excited about the fact that we're here tonight to hear the discussion, but I do want to ask you to do something as you're sitting here, and this is, of course, students, but also everybody else, and that is don't only pay attention to the content. Pay attention also to the process. When you start, if you have not read the book yet, when you start to read Leading Through Disruption, you're going to find that in the stories that are told, the first step was not in identifying a problem. It was in identifying an outcome that was unsatisfactory. The next step was then to identify data and evidence that could be used to define the problem. Data is, in my particular opinion, the salvation of leaders. This is, leaders without data really have a tendency to lead us all over the place. But if I'm making my decisions and my perceptions based on the data that I collect, then I can be a lot more accurate, we can be a lot more efficient, and we can communicate this problem in a way that other people can understand. Because Andrew has spent his life with his head up and looking out, I have no doubt that tonight we truly are going to hear the insights of a leader at the helm. And that's exciting to me, and hopefully it will be exciting to you as we go through the evening. Now, I do have the opportunity to introduce our moderator for tonight, which is Dr. Kristen Stahauer. I have somehow moved to Dr. Stahauer's notes. If two of you would like, I could just stand here and do the whole thing, and then we can just fill you in. So Dr. Stahauer is our academic vice president and provost. She earned her doctorate in international relations at Northwestern University and has completed postgraduate work in higher education at Harvard. Her business career is focused on strategy formulation, implementation, continuous quality improvement, and she has worked with large and small organizations spanning many sectors. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Kristen Stahauer.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. And thank you all for joining us this evening, both here in the McNair Center, which is a full house, by the way. Thank you for making it, and via live streaming. We're spanning the globe right now. Andrew N. Liveris is joining us for the 5th in our series in which we hear from C-suite leaders, leadership insights, a view from the helm. He may not need an introduction, but I'll share some highlights of his illustrious career. Mr. Liveris is the former chairman and chief executive officer of Dow and former executive chairman of DowDuPont. As the company's longest serving non-family CEO and with a combined 42 years of experience at Dow, Andrew had assignments in manufacturing, engineering, sales, marketing, and business and general management before he became CEO and chairman. He is sought after by the world's top corporations and is a director of Lucid Motors, IBM, Saudi Aramco, Worley, and Novonix, among many others. He also sits on multiple advisory boards such as Salesforce and the Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation. Truly a global citizen and leader, he is a special advisor to the Public Investment Fund and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and the United States Council for International Business. No stranger to the epicenter of global power, he has advised 5 United States presidents from both political parties, which is a testament to his focus on impact over politics. In his 2011 book, Make It in America, Andrew advocated for the criticality of manufacturing in building valuable skills and delivering solutions for this century. In 2018, he established the Liveris Academy for Innovation and Leadership at the University of Queensland, and he serves as the president of the board of the Brisbane Organising Committee for the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. And in his most recent book, Leading Through Disruption, A Changemaker's Guide to 21st Century Leadership, Andrew provides a new leadership paradigm for resilience and agility in a rapidly changing world. Please join me in formally welcoming Mr. Andrew Liveris.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank
We're
you.
thrilled to have you here.
It's nice to be home.
Yes, welcome home. So let's get going. These questions came from our students, and so we compiled them. We'll do about 45 minutes conversation, and then we'll go to a Q&A from the audience, and we'll be taking questions from the room as well as from online. But how about if we start out with a question that is at the epicenter, really, of leadership? What traits and skills do you look for in building a team?
So the privilege of leading an enterprise like Dow, the privilege of being exposed to the American centricity around entrepreneurship and innovation, the privilege of coming from humble roots and understanding that it's not position, but it's person, it's relationship, not process, that defines teamwork, means that the model that we look for is leaders have fellowship, but leaders have humility and connectivity. Leaders have access. Leaders make sure that they know everyone is a leader, but the decision-making process that leads to an outcome, as already mentioned, should be part of what they see as embracing the reality of the situation they're in. So what's the outcome? Already explained. And then having the bandwidth to use teams together to come up with choices and then lead those choices as a team. There's an underpinning there of collaboration. There's an underpinning of being the servant, not the general, but at the same time being decisive. Those traits means that, again, back to the American way of doing things, which I learned, is be confident and lean in once you have your data. Lean in and use the 80-20 rule and don't do analysis by paralysis. Make sure that you understand that you'll have to pivot if things aren't right or don't feel right. Pivoting in the moment means you have to withdraw, review, and go back in. Being existential while being on the field. Being in the coach's box, being in the owner's box, but being on the field to implement. Those sorts of traits are very fast cycle traits. You can't be pensive and do analysis by paralysis. You have to be able to motivate and mean things as a person who knows things and set the tone from the front. But then get out of the way and let your team implement. And if they do it well, reward them and motivate them again. If they don't do it well, work with them on what didn't go right, and then celebrate what didn't go well by doing it better next time. These are the sorts of traits I learned at Dow.
And you talked about recognizing a situation where you have to pivot. Could you shed a little more light on that?
Well, some of the things in the book that I talk about from experiences is the mistakes I made early in my CEO tenure. So one of the things that I talk a lot about is it was very clear to me that the team I inherited from actually Bill, were Bill's team, not my team. But then I would work with them to make them my team. Well, some of those people on that team actually competed with me to get the top job. So they were never on my team. Now, I worked really hard to make them on my team. I should have maybe realized after maybe trying that hard that maybe they were never going to be on my team. So that's an example of a real crisis I had where I had a boardroom coup occur in my first 3 years to derail what I was trying to do to change Dow to be an innovation company. These same people who were on the team and lost out the CEO job really wanted to keep Dow as a commodity company and then, frankly, break the company up into pieces, sell a piece off to foreign owners, and really destroy the heart and soul of what brought Dow to the table. Now, the awareness I had of that was high, but my loyalty kept me from doing something, right? So that's an example of I myself learned I didn't embrace the reality of what I had. So I say in the book, you get appointed to this job, build your own team. They don't have to be the same as you. In fact, being different from you is very important. Disagree in the room, align outside the room. Make sure that team executes after they've had the decisions and discussions. That's what the process I allowed later, but I didn't learn that until the third or fourth year.
Thanks for sharing that. Another question from our students is, what are the major challenges in today's business world? We could probably go the rest of the evening on that one. And what do you foresee as the future of your industry?
So volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, VUCA is divergent. We are diverging as a species on this planet. We're reverting to tribalism. We're fighting each other. Wars are proliferating. We have no solution space for the existential threats, climate change, societal inequalities, rich and poor. The top 18 people on this planet now have as much money as the bottom 3.5 billion people. Our system of democracy in the Western model is not distributing capital in the right way. The two models that democracy has brought us, far left, far right, don't work. the center is absent and middle. People are afraid to compromise and come together to solve these existential issues. Throw on top of that a digital revolution that is not controlled. The internet is not controlled. We're being hacked as we speak. As a side joke, I received a Happy New Year card yesterday in the mail from the number 2 leader in China. I don't know how he had my address, and I have no idea why he would send me a Happy New Year card. I mean, I know who he is, okay? Why? So I'm a person of interest in China, okay? They track me, they track my devices. The internet has brought a lot of bad things with it, and I think this is the topic that is not being managed by regulators because they don't understand the topic. And now enter AI, okay? And what are we going to do with AI? So we're sitting on top of this amazing myriad of disruptors using institutions that were built in the 20th century to manage them. They're not managing them. In fact, the only institution that really has got a chance at managing them, which is one of the big themes in my book, is the business enterprise. The business enterprise creates motive to actually challenge and overcome these challenges. But the business community hasn't shown courage in the main to step up and say, I'm for all stakeholders, not just a shareholder. In fact, the ones who do that, witness what happened down in Florida with Mr. DeSantis and Bob Iger with Disney, the ones who do it are charged with something called wokeism. It isn't that at all. It's earning the right to operate from society in the absence of leadership in this disruptive world from government. And because we have former politician, my good friend Mr. Schutte right there, he understands that this needs policy that's for the greater good. Yet you can't sell that, okay? So these amazing challenges that we have in front of us right now that students face, I noticed during my tenure as CEO. I chose to write the book because the academy I created in Queensland, students like these, were asking, why is your generation not solving these problems? To which I answer, I'll tell you why. We haven't understood that these problems can't be solved the old way. We need a redesign. And I need you, the next generation, to be part of the solution space. So this disruptive world we have is divergence. To create convergence, we need people to step up. And I could spend a little more on this, but I'm sure you can ask me a question.
Yeah, well, in fact, a quick follow-up too on the Liveris Academy. What kinds of things are those students learning so they are equipped to address these challenging issues?
I'm doing leadership series like this by either in person or beaming in the world's leaders. I'm a privileged person. I have relationships and networks with every form of government, every form. So I beam in people from Christine Lagarde to Mark Benioff, Mukesh Ambani to, Jeff Bezos. So I give them access to the great minds of the world, okay, like you're doing. I'm not a great mind, but people who really can show and demonstrate what they did to create the growth curves of those enterprises and those people. They also talk about the softer side of humanity, that we don't know how to go to this new model and treat people fairly and equally. So they teach them about sustainability, equality. They talk to them, and then we give them assignments, and then we go out and send them into field studies to companies, to countries. So these are all scholarship-based students. You can apply, by the way. We are opening it up internationally. So it's not just Australian students. It's actually, right now we have Asian students attending. So this is what we're trying to teach them, real-world ways to take content and give it context. That solutions are as horizontal as they are vertical, the looking up point. That if you know where you're going, you better understand that attack will come from sideways as much as in front of you. That peripheral vision matters. We teach them how to cope with adjacencies, regulators, NGOs, different institutions, small startups, large competitors, and that the only differentiator that is out there is human capital. And we teach them how to build organizational systems in their new way of doing work when they go and build things.
So that's a beautiful segue into what advice you might have for somebody starting their career.
So I think the Dow recruiting line that they gave me as a young university student in Australia was, join us, we'll show you the world. Look, when you're at the other side of the world, you really do want to go see the rest of the world. So, we're a long way away from everywhere. Those of you who haven't been to Australia, it's a great place, but, we haven't solved travel distance yet, so we will. So that recruiting line meant that I could join a company that was willing to move me around as a young person to learn other cultures, which they promptly did. But they also allowed me to be as good as I could be and not in the job description they gave me. In other words, I could be a plant or production engineer, but I could go and talk to people who were in R&D, in environmental sciences, the salespeople. They promoted learning as much as you could about the company from a very young age. So that's bandwidth. So what we're teaching our young students, and hopefully people in this room, is really go horizontal as fast as you can in your career. Join community boards, okay? Become philanthropic, donate your time, donate your early years and energy to something that you're not comfortable with, okay? Help people. Okay, help people, mentor at a young age. People who are underprivileged, who don't have access to the university you went to, sponsor someone. Now, you may not have any money, but okay, give them your time. We're trying to teach them to go horizontal early and take those career risks. Government service. I think it's very important that young people go into government service as fast as they can. I want people to go this way. People from government should come and work in companies like Dow early, and the other way around, to stop the bureaucracy that builds in government. I'm dealing with the Olympics right now. Every solution in government is to form a committee. Every committee forms another committee. By the time we're done, we've got 10 committees, and the old adage, right? You design a horse and you get a camel. I mean, this whole notion that committees are the answer is a bureaucracy. And I think busting the bureaucracy and making it seamless, you need to see it early so you know how to provide the solutions.
There was certainly a through line in your book, too, about the fluidity of how our world is organized, to the point you were just making, that governments don't matter as much or aren't having as much impact as they used to have, and businesses have an opportunity and need to step up.
Yeah. Well, I have a whole chapter on governments, and my observation in the countless trips I did to places like Washington, D.C., it felt like root canal surgery on a constant basis. I mean, you were always in front of people who were, they were intelligent people, nothing wrong with that, but their interest in understanding your industry or what you needed to create success was very low. And then the triangulation between the legislative branch and the executive branch and the regulator and the agencies was you kept bouncing pillar to post. No wonder we have 170,000 lobbyists on K Street who are all ex-government people making money on being in government. Okay, the system is broken in the sense interest groups dictate policies. You don't think Wall Street runs this country? You don't think Hollywood runs this country? I mean, why did we get a Trump? Because the view was the elites were running the country. And you, the great middle, which I objected to as a comment, right, were being ignored. And this division, okay, is what ends up being the problem with respect to getting sensible policies. And therefore you had to work that very hard as a leader in a business to the 5 Ds I talk about, right? In the 60s, 70s, Dow would deny that it had an environmental problem or two, right? Okay. Then the EPA was formed, Clean Air Act occurred. We went into defiance. What do they know? Okay. We have the better science. Not wrong, but that was adversarial. Third D, they're not going away. We better work with the regulator as a regulatee. So let's debate. The fourth D, discussion. Debate yields discussion, leads to policy. Okay. The policy should be between the regulator and regulatee together in a win-win. Okay. And then what? Someone needs to do something. Okay. The 50. I think that cycle has become very fast. The challenges of today is our politicians go in and go from the left or the right, and no one goes from the middle. The middle is unelectable. This is not true in the United States, by the way. It's true in every democracy. Okay, the policies that need to happen are the compromise of the left and the right in the middle. And that vacuum means that someone needs to fill it. And I think the 21st century business leaders need to step up and help fill it.
So that ties to one of the questions from our students, that you've said profit and purpose have converged. And to get to that 5D, doing well and doing good is or should be in the DNA of what it means to be a leader. Could you share a little bit more about that and how our students could prepare themselves for that kind of leadership?
So the notion of capitalism, and I talk about inclusive capitalism in the book, is that the people who own money, manage money, are the smartest people on allocating money in assets and sectors. So if you're over here in a company like Dow with a board, you understand your industry, you understand how to make money in your sector, you are thinking about R&D, you're thinking about investment capital for 15, 20, 25-year timeframes. Over here, the money that comes from pensions, our pensions, goes to asset owners, like, CalSTRS and CalPERS, Ontario Teachers, and all the pension funds, who then go to asset managers, who basically, like the mutual funds, Vanguard, Fidelity, State Street, and those two allocations of capitals are based on research reports done by investment banks, sell side and buy side, who study your sector and come back to these and say, allocate your capital here. The system is broken because over here, the rewards are on a one-year bonus scheme. So the middlemen and women make money in the 1 year, not the 15 years. By the way, they're doing it off your pensions, okay? So who made that up? They made it up because they have the interest groups to convince government that that's the way money should be allocated. I mean, I remember giving a lecture at Wharton and 300 kids in the room, MBA students, and I said, how many of you are going to go into manufacturing when you graduate? No hand goes up. How many of you are going to go into finance? Every hand went up. So we are sending people to perpetuate that model, okay? Yet the true value creation of America is invention and innovation in technology discontinuities. So profit and purpose is, we want an energy transition. We should own the energy transition. We should own all the technologies in the value chain. We should be the number one provider of what it'll take to go from hydrocarbons all the way to the alternatives, nuclear, hydrogen, all the things everyone's talking about, EVs, batteries. We should be the owner of that. We're not. China is, okay? All right? Pretty much, we've lost the energy transition technology race. An article in Wall Street Journal today about the solar panels, if you go read that. What? The great American entrepreneurial discovery engine is losing to an autocratic state-owned system because they invent better? No. We invent better. But are they willing to put risk capital at place? In their case, they're state banks, which are broke mostly, but they've got surpluses, thanks to us. Okay, basically, they take risk capital and bet it. We should be rewarding purpose-based investments to create the energy transition to a zero carbon future by rewarding the companies to invest in the technologies to deploy them. Direct air capture, carbon capture and storage, green steel, green cement, SMRs. Those technologies should be owned by the great American entrepreneurial system. But we're not, because companies can't afford to take the bet because they have to pay a dividend and do share buybacks and earn profits every 90 days.
That is short-termism versus long-termism.
Which is a disease. And unfortunately, the digital world, if we revert to these devices, is giving us all ADD. We are all intoxicated by being better connected rather than using the technology, okay, to basically invent the next chip, okay? the next device. Now, the exceptions to this rule is the Silicon Valley corridor and the Boston-Cambridge corridor, both the technology-based industries in Silicon Valley and biotech in Cambridge. Under President Obama and later Trump, we tried to put innovation centers across the country to mimic that, to bring the DoD, DOE, DARPA together to do that. We need to own these transitions for humanity because we are the inventors of these technologies. To do that, we need long-term timeframes. And to do that, we need to define the purpose of doing it, which is absolutely totally the same as creating new profit pools. To state the obvious, if I'm the inventor, I own the patent. If I own the patent, I make the money. Why aren't I discovering and modeling and scaling these technologies? So that's where I think we've gotten broken. The three big great periods of inventiveness in the United States were World War I, World War II, and NASA. JFK, man on the moon. Huge proliferation of invention that got commercialized. That is our modern life. We haven't had any of that since the 60s. So we are losing the technology race. Okay? And I think this is where I think long-termism needs to be brought back.
And in your book, you talk about how you were able to meet the short-term expectations while having a long-term perspective.
Yeah, I mean, look, the wolves of Wall Street were at our feet all the time. They were always wanting more. I have a whole chapter in the book about the activists. And fundamentally, I don't want to say it exactly this way, but we outgamed them. Yeah, we made them think they won, and they could take away, the money they made out of our stock going up, and our stock going up had nothing to do with what they were suggesting. Okay, the egos are just terrible. I mean, the hedge fund crowd, the short-term people, you would not want them, okay, as your neighbor. I mean, these are people that Jim Fittling and I were talking about it on the Dow World News this morning. We went and spent, 8 hours, countless hours before that, with Nelson Peltz and Triant, okay, and in his big mansion in Palm Beach, Florida, right on the water there, Billionaires Row, he invited us down there to explain to him why our strategy was the right strategy, and as an investor in Dow and DuPont, why his idea wasn't the right idea. So after many hours, we were leaving. We had not convinced him. He had not convinced us. The person escorting us out said to both of us, "You know what you guys don't get? It's better to be rich than right." Think about that as a headline. I hope the students in this room understand what I just said. So we have totally changed the dynamic about what wealth creation should mean. Okay? Wealth creation isn't more dollars in the bank account. Wealth creation is value creation so that everybody in your ecosystem improves, okay, their financial outcome by being in your ecosystem. Your community, your employees, your supply chain, and you should put in place the standards that are 21st century standards, not 20th century standards. And I think we need a wake-up call. And that's why I wrote the book. I say in the book, I got angry. Well, angry because I was upset that we weren't getting that message through, and that business cowered, okay, when asked, well, you shouldn't be talking on behalf of minority rights and social justice. It's not your job. Are you kidding? It is our job. We have the podium, we have the pulpit. And by the way, if we employ the best people of any shape, sizes, and we have the best human capital, we will make money out of that. Why do you think that isn't a value driver? Because it's not a profit driver. So this is where profit with purpose is where I talk about it in the book. And there are more companies doing it, but unfortunately, Wall Street tends to win when they get attacked.
Cautionary tale there. Your book gives us a front row view of your leadership and some of the challenges you've faced. And you've been at the epicenter of some of the most important deals of our time. You have faced challenges to your leadership that you referenced earlier, activist investors. And you mentioned that your 3 children say that you're at your best in a crisis. How do you handle in those stressful situations, keep your cool, and what could our students learn from that? And how could they perhaps learn those skills? Part of it's probably your nature, but also some of it's probably learned.
A leader's born or a leader's developed. I think we all have innate traits that are leadership, but you can develop these traits. And I think it starts, in my case, I blessed with great mentors, and then I went and sought what excellence looks like. I went and studied people. I looked at how they did it. I became CEO. Bill Stavropoulos said, go talk to these numbers of people, CEOs, retired or current, and learn from them. And I did. And I listened carefully, and I looked for answers to that question you just asked. And you know, what I noticed is many of the successful ones, all the successful ones, okay, really understood that it's not the position that defines you. It's you in the position, okay? And that you've got to make sure, and I talk about it in the book, I can count 6 different versions of myself in the position where I had to change to suit what was in front of me, not what was behind me. And most people won't want to change, especially when you get to a certain age. Change is really hard. But for young people, you can change. And I visibly remember many times during this crisis forcing the change, which made me think, why am I waiting for a crisis? Okay. You know, what is it about a crisis that makes a change? Well, the obvious, okay, house is on fire, you have to run out. And sure, there was 3 or 4 of those. But in between all that, I realized that I set the tone and the tempo for the entire company. It's the job. But I need to show the entire company that I'm a person first, that I care about family, that I give time to people, that I'm accessible, that I'm in the field. I went to 40 countries a year. I was, you know, people sometimes complain I wasn't visiting Midland because I was based here, but I was out there all the time. The reality was, by doing that, I was showing the organization that I'm a person, okay, who cared about outcomes for them, okay? And that sort of connectivity and accessibility and humility are defining attributes of a CEO leader. And I think I had great people I obviously learned from. I also had, you know, relationship building skills I learned in Asia. I learned in Asia, you know, they have the 3 paradigms in the world, the rule of law, the rule of logic, the rule of relationship. In Asia and a lot of the emerging world, the rule of relationship runs and dictates the rule of logic that dictates the rule of law. In Western societies, it's inverted. The rule of law drives the rule of logic, drives the rule of relationship. So we think every relationship of any substance should be contractual, okay? It should be written and signed, and therefore it's done. Whereas their whole persona is, no. We're going to shake hand, we're going to look at each other in the eyes, and the minute you let me down will be the last time we do business again. That is pretty digital. So you learn how to build relationships. And I think that's another attribute that I think you can bring to the table.
What advice would you give your younger self?
I had an amazing 42 years at Dow. My first 10 to 20 years was foundational, that I understood what my job, and I already mentioned how Dow liberated me and allowed me to do many things. If I could push the button and start again, and by the way, not for the sake of being young again, which I would love, but I would do anything to be 21, 22, 23 right this moment. This is the biggest opportunity era, okay? More than what I grew up in, by far. Because the problems are so big, the solution space, okay, is available for all of us to go tackle, and I'll certainly do my bit. But what I would say to my younger self is, you were too slow. You should have been more urgent. You should have push the envelope even more. And people say I push the envelope pretty hard. But it was an innate characteristic of mine to be patient and almost humble, okay, for a longer period of time. So in that first 10 years, I would have run harder. Okay.
So tying into that, you end your book, Leading Through Disruption, with a call to action. And I'll quote, "Do not squander the unprecedented ability you have in this century to lead with context and content. It is a privilege." Could you share more about that?
Yeah, look.
Because it ties in with this exciting opportunity our students have right now.
Which is the attribute question as well. It's the American football, go deep, go wide, go deep, go wide. Content is go deep, wide. Context is go wide. I think you need to understand what I said about the energy transition earlier, that we're living in post-globalization. This globalization 1.0, dead, okay? You're not going to see what we saw 80s, 90s, 00s, okay? That is gone. The reason for that is China has arrived. Okay? We spent 30 years helping China arrive. They're here, okay? They are here, okay? And they don't subscribe to the US model. Their rule book is not our rule book. Now, we have other countries like that, notably Russia, but Russia's not economically significant. China is economically significant. And very soon, globalization 2.0 will emerge, okay? And it'll emerge in ways that my book suggests is almost how humans first started to operate together. It'll be ground up community, like-minded people saying we can win together by creating a synergy. So globalization 2.0 will then mean you can absolutely totally work with other cultures and other countries that have your value set. But countries and companies that don't have your value set will be adversarial. And so this discussion around how to migrate to this new pattern is what I would say is the opportunity that's in front of us. And I would say if we can jump into the fray and help our value chain on the key topics, energy security, okay, leaving no one behind on education and health, making sure everyone has access to modern infrastructure, really putting in place, if you like, a financial policy that is fiscal, not monetary. Remember, we've had the other disease of monetary policy now for 20 years, which has made a lot of financial bad decisions. These are the sorts of things that I think will lead to the rise of a new opportunity set.
Thank you for all of that. And it's time to turn it over to our audience. And we do have a couple of questions that have come in via online, and we also have a mic in the room. So what is your opinion of the nonprofit sector, and what lessons can it learn from the for-profit sector?
Yeah, I'd almost like to, in the 21st century, dispense with both definitions, okay? Because the earlier question of profit for purpose, you might argue, has a not-for-profit piece of that on the old definitions. So I'd like to think the value pools that are available for previously defined for-profit, previously defined not-for-profit, are collaborative. We should be working in partnership models with people who have as their main doctrine to help others. And we should do that in a value equation where we employ the people that they're helping. We help the people that are disadvantaged, disabilities, minorities. We help in a context of multi-stakeholder management. Inclusive capitalism suggests that business needs to return to what the founder here and his contemporaries of 100 years ago understood. The founder here built a community, and he built a company, okay? Thomas Edison, George Westinghouse, the Fords, that was the genesis of communities. We've never left this town as a company. When I was CEO, and the current CEO firmly believes the same, because we understand that the value of community crosses the philanthropy volunteering, non-for-profit, profit definition. I think the whole country needs to go to that.
It's more relevant than ever,
Yeah.
to your point.
Well, again, who do you trust? Who's your partner? It isn't a screen, okay? It isn't someone you've never met. It's your neighbor. It's your relationship with your community, your ability to be part of something. I think young people are screaming for that. You know, we want to absolutely be part of something that helps. At Dow, we developed this notion, footprint, handprint, blueprint, during my time. And the notion of blueprint is that our boundary condition isn't the factory fence. Okay, we don't stop at the factory fence. That's footprint. Our boundary condition isn't handprint, which is the products we send to the market, the world. It's blueprint. It's absolutely the entire planet. That's a mindset shift for corporations, but it is also a mindset shift for what is for profit and profit.
Thank you. We have another question. You're involved in a lot of different arenas in the business world. What is your passion and how does it drive you each day?
As already mentioned, by this desire to, reinvent myself at age 21 again, what drives me is the challenge and the opportunity at this current era. I think these tectonic shifts are colliding and they're at intersections. And we have not got, as a society, the intellectual bandwidth to cope with it. So I've made a decision to be in digital, to be in the energy transition, both pieces of it, the renewables and the hydrocarbons. I've made the decision to be in philanthropies, foundations, universities, an academy. Why? Because I have a front row seat at all the changes and I can see them all firsthand. So then I can walk away from that and distill out of that, okay, in all the things I do, what could be the most helpful. Throw on top of that this Olympic assignment, which in every respect I should never have said yes because I have no time.
You said you
I have
had
no
to,
time.
Right?
But my wife, the call came in from the president of the IOC saying, we'd like to offer you the job of president of Brisbane Olympics. In case you don't know, Brisbane won the Olympics for 2032 a year and a half ago. And I said, well, can I call you back? I mean, it really caught me by surprise. So I hung up the phone. My wife's there, Paula, and she says, who was that? And she said, what did you say? I said, I'll get back to him. Pick up that phone and call and say yes. So this is my wife who, basically, 42 years of marriage. I mean, I'm gone a lot of the time in my Dow job. Maybe there's a message in there, but I got her point. Australian, Greek heritage, my home city, sports, which I love, kind of the Olympics, which is the ultimate global institution that survived. If not me, then who? Okay, and so I called back and said yes. Now, it's been an interesting 18 months, I got to tell you. It's every bit as bureaucratic and political as Olympics tend to be.
Maybe you can depoliticize.
I don't know if I'll practice, I'll prototype.
Debureaucratize it.
But here's what I love. I love being around the young people who are athletes or want to be athletes. The 8-year-old, who wants to, be in the 32 Olympics, because that's the trajectory we have. So that part of it works. But no, I try to be in all these verticals so I can be horizontal. By having as much content as I can across these verticals, I'm better at being horizontal, that I can then go after the opportunity. That's what my passion is. I mean, at some point in time, I'm going to have to slow down, but I haven't figured that out yet. That's another question.
So speaking of some of the areas that you're in, we have a question about the Lucid involvement that you have. Given that Lucid is still a startup, what are your plans to address cash flow issues, or do you see it as a growing pain, which will improve as volume increases?
That's a very educated question, and probably from a Lucid shareholder.
They could be out there.
The reality is, I kind of implied this earlier with leadership. In these tectonic shifts that are going on, the inventor and scaler of the innovation, in this case, Elon Musk and Tesla, the leader takes the most risk and therefore the most reward. The second, third, fourth, fifth, okay, will tail off very fast because the first, basically has got the market to adapt to their model. And every EV is different. So what we're doing at Lucid is we're going for markets that Tesla doesn't dominate. And therefore, and we have a friendly shareholder, 56% owned by the PIF of Saudi Arabia, who are in it for the long game. They're a long-term owner. So the answer is, look, yeah, it's a cash burn, but Elon and Tesla didn't make money for 8 years. He went bankrupt twice. He had to go with his hand out to Silicon Valley tech people to get money. So we should expect that this is what it's going to take to convert an entire fleet of mobility to EVs.
Short-termism versus long-termism.
Right.
Any
Buy a
questions-
Lucid. It's a great car.
Any
SUV.
questions from the room? We have a microphone over here.
Shy group.
We have another question from online. What do you do to relax with any spare time you might have?
Well, did you ask me that question earlier? I think Ravi's a former employee of mine. Yeah, not much. So, yeah. I think the grandparent thing. I'd answer there. Try to spend time with those 3 little babies, and I think that's a new. And we all know, those of us who get to that stage, that you hear about this being a grandparent, and then you experience it and you understand it, right? Because you can spoil them, you can do anything you want, and hand them back. I mean, it's just all that. So yeah, being a grandparent, but I don't know whether it's relaxed. It's pretty intense around them. So I don't know, but yeah, I like being with family.
What a great note to end on with the future generation.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Liveris, for
Andrew.
investing your time in helping us learn about your keys to success.
Thank you.
We've all benefited greatly from your leadership, insights, and wisdom, especially our students. And to wrap things up, we'd like to invite Charlie Szymanski, a student from Midland, Michigan, whose undergraduate studies at Northwood were in operations and supply chain management and business management. And she's currently in the Accelerated DeVos Graduate School of Management MBA program. She also completed an internship at Dow in supply chain this past summer, is now a full-time employee of Dow while completing her MBA. And when she completes her MBA, she will have achieved her bachelor and master's degrees in just 4 years. She is why we're confident of our future here. Please join us in welcoming Charlie Szymanski.
Well, thank you, Dr. Stayhauer, and a special thank you to Mr. Liveris for so generously sharing his wisdom tonight. As I prepare for my career, I have a number of valuable takeaways from this evening. From the conversation, your comments that business in the 21st century is more complex and blindsiding than anyone could have ever imagined 20 years ago resonated with me as I begin my early career. Large changes have taken place in recent years, and we can expect this rapid change to continue. My generation is presented with an opportunity to reimagine the business landscape, to deploy lessons and skills in a new manner that resonate with this generation. Mr. Liveris mentioned that we have become consumed by a culture of instant gratification, where the disease short-termism has overtaken organizations. Any actions taken today are for tomorrow, which is why we must emphasize short-termism and long-termism as a collaborative. Short-term profits can be achieved in a number of ways, but long-term profits should never be disabled. Taking this long-term approach will serve us all well. Your comments about developing a strong, supportive team were impactful. I was surprised to learn about the large changes made to the board and the team around you during your time at Dow. As a leader, finding team members that support the same purpose, vision, strategy, and direction is critically important. A leader cannot be fearful of changing the people around them to work towards a better future. After the discussion today, I know I will be contemplating my vision and how those I surround myself with align with those same shared values. In your book, you stated that leaders need to disrupt themselves, a comment which you reiterated this evening. Leaders need to transform, refresh, and disrupt. This statement is so powerful. As leaders, we need to be able to go wide and deep, constantly striving to learn things outside of our sphere of focus. It is this drive to understand that leads to a solution mindset, which allows us to be the disruptors. Leaving the discussion this evening, I am inspired to continually seek enrichment to transform myself as a leader. These are just a few of my takeaways from the evening. I know I will be reflecting on several of the ideas that Mr. Liveris has delivered. I hope that you also found the discussion to be enlightening. Thank you again for allowing all of us to benefit from your leadership insights.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Liveris, to commemorate your serving as a guest in Northwood University's Leadership Insights, A View from the Helm, we have a gift to show our appreciation for you.
Thank you. I'm going to get you to write the preface of my next book. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful. Yeah, please. Thank you. Well done. Well done. Thank you, Charlie.
So I just want to leave you with a couple of points, 2 data points. Number one is this remarkable little university in Midland, Michigan, has a statistic that I believe is unmatched. That is, how is it that students can graduate from here and over a third of them become entrepreneurs to own their own companies? Number two is, according to Georgetown University, when they look at all 4,500 universities across the country, this little university in Midland, Michigan ranks in the top 11% in terms of ROI. In other words, you pay your tuition, that is your investment of a private good that you're going to receive, and it will pay you back in 20 and 30 and 40 years. Those are remarkable statistics. And for the students here who wonder, this great big corporate world, how am I going to fit into it? Our greatest gift that we can give to you is hope and confidence. And tonight was a masterclass in terms of a young lad coming from rural Australia all the way to this little town of Midland, Michigan, and going on to lead one of the great institutions on the planet. So I hope that you take that as some form of inspiration. I thank all of you for being here. Many of the guests, our former Attorney General is here, my faculty and staff colleagues, but in particular the students, many of whom are representative of our women's volleyball team, women's soccer team, and those interested in this nebulous, complex thing called leadership. But Andrew, it was remarkable what you shared with us today, and we're grateful that you could be here. I will let you know that we have refreshments in the back. We have copies of a fantastic book available for you to receive. And I would also remind you that in just 2 weeks, we will have another outstanding guest here. I encourage all of you to return, particularly those in the community, back into Midlands University. We will have Dr. Robert Grube. He's a Northwood alumnus. He's a serial entrepreneur. He too is a transformational leader, and he wants to share with you some of his insights from the Helm. So to all of you, please join us. Andrew, once again, safe travels. Good luck with the Olympics and all the other things that you're involved with. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Thank you.
Nice job, sir. Thank you very much.